What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the We Run on Coffee podcast. I'm Arika.
And I'm Marissa.
And I'm Tayla.
And we have a new guest. Woohoo!
Yay.
Tayla's here. Tayla is coming at us all the way from LA. How's the weather out in LA today?
It's very hot today. I got a little sunburn.
Wow. Nuh-uh.
A little
We're
bit.
like freezing our butts out over here.
You're freezing. It was 80 in Ohio today.
Okay,
Oh,
actually, that's
crazy.
true. But I am sitting in my AC house, so who am I to complain? That's so true. It was 80 in Ohio today. What a weird time, because I'm going to New York next week. It's going to be in the high 60s. I'm like, okay. Anyway, I want to start with our first thing that we always start with, which is what is everybody drinking today? What do you guys got?
Water. I'm boring
Water.
today. I was
It's
just
okay.
telling them both. I had an apple cider on the last episode, and I feel like I had so much sugar in my apple cider that I
True.
needed just water, and I don't have any other drinks in my house.
Understandable. Tayla, what do you got? You got anything over there?
Right now I have water, but right before this I was having some Starbucks cold brew.
Ooh. Okay, you guys listening. For Tayla, it's daytime, and for us, it's nighttime, which is so funny. It's like that weird part of the time difference. Like, usually it's fine, but there's a weird part of the time difference where it's either really early or really late. So,
Yeah.
Marissa and I, it's 8 p.m. For Tayla, it's 5. So, it's really funny. Okay, a Starbucks cold brew. Tayla's a Starbucks girly. I feel like
I
through and
am.
through, you like Starbucks.
Only the cold brew though. I don't like
Yeah.
the lattes. They're too like
That's
sugary, like milky. No.
Yeah, they are really milky. That's like their thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a random drink. I was telling Marissa I went to the store before this to buy a drink because it would be fun. So I'm pulling up the pictures so I can tell you guys. Bolt House Farms had a buy one, get one free drinks, which I feel like buy one, get one free you never see these days. Not in this economy. So I picked up 2 drinks. The first one is my Green Goddess. This is my favorite one. I don't know. You guys have maybe seen me drink this, but
Green
it's like my favorite one.
goodness, we've learned.
Oh my God, yes. Thanks, Marissa. I do that every time.
You're
And we
thinking
did one
of-
on the podcast.
You're thinking of Trader Joe's, like the salad dressing.
Oh, is that what it's from? I was like, why do
I
we do it
think.
every time? Okay, wait, that makes sense. Okay, not salad dressing. This is Green Goodness drink. But then the other one I bought that I got for free, because I was like, I might as well try this. This is interesting. It is Bolt House Farms also, but this is a protein drink, which I never get, but it's a cold brew flavor, and it's with oat milk.
Oh.
It's an oat milk
good.
protein plus. So I'll let you guys know if it's good. I know you both are like an oat milk girly, I feel like, so this is perfect. Love this for you guys. I'm an almond milk girly now, but we don't have to talk about it. Don't want to make Marissa mad.
You're not going to make me mad. It's
I'm just kidding.
There
I'm a
is an
traitor.
oat milk supremacy, and you're just not a part of it.
Facts. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I'm drinking is my Green Goodness drink. So, anyways, let's talk about what we're looking forward to coming up before we get into like the actual interview. So, I guess honestly, I'll just start. Why
Okay.
not? I'll just allow myself to start.
Okay.
I don't have a lot coming up in the next couple weeks, but my most looking forward to is that I'm going to New York City this week and I'm leaving in 2 days and I'm not ready. So that's exciting. I just started packing today and I'm kind of a mess. And then the other thing that I'm excited about is something I talked about in the pod a couple weeks ago, which is we're going to Marissa's brother-in-law. That sounds weird to say about a kid, but whatever. Marissa's brother-in-law, Caden, which he's 16, ? How old is he?
Yeah, 16.
16 sounds right. I don't know. He's in high school, but anyway, he plays football on the football team, and we were supposed to go to one of his games recently, which I don't think I ever updated on this, but we didn't go. And also Hurricane Helene hit at that same exact time, and it was actually pretty bad in Ohio. So glad we didn't go, but I will be going to that in a couple weeks. So I'm excited to watch some high school football. It's like so nostalgic vibes, which is exciting.
Me and
So
Kyle,
Marissa, what are you looking forward
me
to?
and Kyle
Go
were
ahead.
actually just talking about football. I was like, should we go to a high school
Yeah.
football game in the area?
Yes,
Like
we
soon.
should.
And he said we should. But I
That would
guess
be really cute.
I'll go on my updates or my looking
Yeah.
ahead. So actually this weekend, Erica, instead of going to New York with you like I was going
Yeah.
to, I'm
Where are you going?
taking a little trip to Ohio
No, you're not.
for
What?
for a friend's birthday party. So
What in the heck? That's
I'm
so fun.
leaving on Friday after I get off work, and then I'm leaving very early Sunday morning. So it's just going to be a real quick trip, but I'm going to her birthday party
That's
on
crazy.
Saturday night. So
Is this a friend we know on the pod?
yeah, not one that's been on the pod, but
Right.
I'm going to see Courtney and Jada that have been guests,
Awesome.
but it's
Yeah.
for Jennifer's birthday.
Okay, I remember her.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So I'm going to
So
see
exciting.
her. And then the week after that, I'm going to Boston, and I'm going to take a day trip to Salem for Kyle and I's 10-year anniversary.
Whoa. 10 years is wild.
I'm
know. Shook.
Actually, a week from tomorrow, as we're recording this, it will be our 1-year wedding anniversary.
Yes.
And then the Friday after that. So Monday would be our anniversary for our wedding, and then Friday is the anniversary of us dating for 10 years. So
10 years is wild.
I know. I'm really excited. But one other thing, I'm going to do 3 things instead of just 2
do it.
that I'm excited for. Tomorrow after work, there's a pop-up Halloween bar near where we live, and we're going to go and just like check out the atmosphere and maybe get like 1 drink each and see what it's about.
Cute.
So I'm really excited to do
cute.
that tomorrow too.
Very spooky updates.
I
so
know.
fitting for you. Love that. All right, Tayla, what do you got? Are you looking forward to anything coming up? Doesn't have to be in 2 weeks. It could be like anything at all.
Okay, I would say probably just soaking up the sun that I have here because I'm so used
good.
to like going into like winter at this point, or fall, winter, and it being so cold. But I'm like, whoa, I can still just like be outside, be by the pool. Like,
that's
it's
so
crazy.
true.
Yeah, so I'm
that's
just gonna soak it up.
I love that. We just, well, as you can tell, it's very dark in our houses, not only because it's late, but because of freaking winter. Like, it's getting dark so early. So I don't love that. But also we just did, it hasn't come out yet, but we just did an episode on seasonal depression. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that to hit me, you know? So I'm jealous, to say the least. Anyway, as we are wrapping up this little chit chat, we're gonna get started with our interview with Tayla, and I'm so excited. It's so weird to call it an interview. It is technically, but I feel like it's just a fun chat and I love doing it. So we're gonna start out with just like some who is Tayla questions, get to know Tayla, which is exciting.
I know, and it's exciting because I get to ask these questions to you.
Usually it's me.
And Erica's asked them to both, to my first friend, and then I got to like kind of facilitate the interview for the last one.
True.
So I'm excited for this one. This is going to be an episode of me just like popping in here and there, basically, because the majority of it is going to be Erica asking you questions, but I'm excited to get to know you more. So
amazing, me too.
The first question is, so Tayla and Erica, what is your relationship to each other for the people that don't know?
We're besties.
That's what I was going to say. We're besties.
Bestie girls is like something I feel like we actually always say unironically though. Like we always say bestie girl, and I love it.
It's like ironic, but not ironic.
It is. It is ironic and unironic at the same time, but it's always like my bestie girl. Yeah.
Yes.
We're besties.
So the next question is then how did you meet? And then also like how long ago did you meet? Like what was the circumstances and everything behind it?
I'll let Tayla take this one since she is our guest, but also I feel like she has a cool perspective because she kind of initiated our friendship.
Aw.
I did. Yeah. It's so random. Like I always forget this is how we met, but we met on Instagram because I slid in Erica's DMs.
She did. She slid right in the DMs, baby.
That's so funny.
It was because this influencer that we both followed had reposted Erica's story, and this influencer is like, she lives in like New York City now, but like it's not like a local influencer. Yeah, it's Brooke Michio, right?
Yeah, Brooke Michio.
Okay, that's what I thought. She reposted Erica's story, and Erica's story was like a laptop with like stickers on it, and one of the stickers was like Rock City, which was a church that we both went to. And so I saw it, I was like, whoa, I wonder. And I think you had like an Ohio State sticker or something.
Yeah, something Columbus
like
related.
That. Yeah, and then I like went to your profile and I was like, oh my gosh, she lives in Columbus. And then I saw that you had a YouTube channel, I think is what made me be like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, we're like the same. And I think you had a YouTube channel at that point too,
Yeah,
right?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I like DM'd you.
That's
and
funny.
then we ended up just like going thrifting for our first hangout.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Which was so weird because I was like nervous. I was just like, I don't know, this girl's from the internet, like she's from my Instagram. She looks really cool and nice. She also has YouTube, so I thought that was cool. Yeah. But I was like really scared. I just looked up, I don't remember like exactly when it was that this all happened, but Instagram, I don't know if you guys have seen this, has a new thing called shared activity. So if you go on anyone you follow's page and click the 3 dots for settings, it says see your shared activity. And so this is what it tells me about Tayla and I. Tayla followed me in November of 2019 and I followed Tayla back in November of 2019. So it had to be in like 2019 or 2020 it had to be 2019. I feel like that makes sense. November 2019. And then we probably first hung out like early in that next year.
Yeah. So like,
so wild.
So like late 2019. So it's like been like 5 years that you've like known each other.
Oh my gosh.
So crazy,
wow.
I guess. That's really weird. You never think about how long you know someone until you talk about it, and then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, we went to Uptown Cheapskate. I remember I brought Angela's sister with me too. That was really cute.
Aww, you said so for random, safety. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was like, honestly, more for socially. I'm like, I'm nervous.
That's so funny because I don't remember being nervous at all. I think I was like, cool, and then
that's
I just showed up.
That kind of tracks. I feel like that would make sense.
The duality of women. One's terrified and one's ready to go.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so
true.
funny.
I was also nervous too, I think, because Tayla was a little bit older than me. She's really not that much older than me in the grand scheme of life. But in college, I felt like, oh my gosh, anyone above my grade, like my grade or whatever in college, I was like, what if she's cooler than me? Like, what if she's like, I don't know. I was just scared of her. So that's so funny because now I don't even think about her age anymore.
I was actually just talking about that with somebody today because like now that like we're all out of college, we're all older, like we're growing up or whatever. It's so weird because like age was like such like a number. Like it really was a number like when you're younger because like 1 year difference is like you're in a different stage of life. But now like 20s and 30s, you're basically at the same stage of life throughout that whole time. Like of course you could be at different stages. Like some people could have kids, some people could have a house, but like 20s and 30s, you're honestly just like doing the same things. It's just like you might be 10 years older than
times. Me. yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
That's so true.
It's really honestly kind of weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that, because of that, I never think about age anymore. I'm just like, oh, you can look at someone at a certain life stage and be like, oh, cool, they're in the same stage as me or not.
Yeah.
So weird. But we know that you're tuning in from LA because I said that earlier, so spoiler. But where did you grow up? Because it wasn't LA. I know that.
It was not LA. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. And then I moved to Columbus, Ohio for college to go to Ohio State.
Yes. And okay, so this is a fun question that I did repeat from some of Marissa's guest episodes too, because I just love this one. When you were a kid, did you ever have somewhere that you were like, oh my gosh, when I grow up, I really want to live blank, like a certain dream location that you wanted to live?
Yeah, I don't remember having any like specific location. I think it was because I didn't really like travel a ton or anything growing up. Yeah. But I always remember, like, the older I got, the more I just hated living in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, I want to live in a city so bad. And so that was my goal, was to, like, live in a city.
And now here you are in a big city.
A biggest city. Literally. Honestly, like, one of the largest, like, well-known cities, I feel like, in the U.S. That's really crazy. I relate to that. I felt the same way. I was just like, I don't know what I want, but it isn't to stay here. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
So, okay, Marissa, do you want to take my next two questions?
Yeah.
I feel like we can alternate a little.
Of course. So, I didn't know you at all as a kid. Erica didn't know you at all as a kid. So, these next two are like when you were little. What were your hobbies when you were growing up? And you can even talk about like what your hobbies are now, too.
True.
Yeah, I feel like growing up, my hobbies were like outdoor things because we lived like in the country. So, it was like going on bike rides and I was a competitive baton twirler too, so I would like practice all the time. And so that was like a huge thing. We had a pool, so just like going swimming and stuff like that. I remember I loved reading, and then I loved YouTube. Like I would watch so much YouTube, which inspired me to start my YouTube channel when I was like 13 or 14. I just like learned how to like edit and film and kind of just like taught myself. So I was obsessed with YouTube.
Aww. I didn't know you had a pool. That is so awesome. And also that's so cute because I had the same kind of experience with YouTube, or the same, like, I don't know, opening to it or whatever. I just like was a watcher first, and I was like, I could make a lip sync video. I'm like, it can't be that hard. So I started around the same age, and all my stuff was just like lip singing videos that I edited really cringy, but it was so fun. And that was like a good hobby because it takes a good amount of time, but it's like you get a reward at the end of all the work.
Have any of those like hobbies stuck around? Like obviously YouTube is probably stuck around, but is there anything else or any new hobbies you've developed like later as like an adult?
I would say probably working out became more of a thing for me because I was always like a competitive baton twirler until my senior year of high school. So I was always like training like in the gym and always, I guess, like in shape from that. But then my senior year when I like stopped, I was like, okay, I like want to try just like lifting and like doing different workouts. And that's when I got more into stuff like that. So like taking workout classes, doing like weight training. I've done like cycling. So just different things like that. So I feel like it kind of played off of that. And it was just me trying to like fill that gap of like, okay, like I want to still be active. So that's been a big thing. I've been injured for the past year, so I haven't gotten to work out in literally a year. But that's
so sad.
Before last year. It's been like a huge thing that I've kept up with.
Aw. Are you a cycle hater like Arika?
No, I love cycling. I did
Yeah.
it a lot last year because, well, last year I was overcoming an ankle injury. And
Oh
so
my gosh. It's
so
never
that was
ending.
like one of the things that I was able to do. My old roommate was, or she's a physical therapist, and so she was like, "You could do cycling, like try it out." And so I tried it out, and I actually really liked it. It really like took my energy out when I would be like anxious or like had a long work
Mm.
day. I would just book a class on ClassPass and just go cycle, and I would feel way better.
Yes, I
You guys
agree.
actually, you two have similar workout things to each other. I feel like you guys like the same amount of stuff. Like the things you both tell me that you like working out wise are the same as each other. I
Aw.
put that in
Cool.
the most confusing way possible. I get it.
Aw.
As you know, I'm a cycle hater, so
Yeah,
yeah.
she is.
Got
That's why I had to ask. I know that
Of
Arika,
course.
she's only done her one class, so she
Yeah.
definitely needs to give it another try.
I could give it another try. I
But
sure could.
I was just curious what your thoughts were on it.
Yeah. So true.
So last question for like this intro section. As a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I feel like it was like changing a lot, but I have this memory of like when I was younger, I would convince my little sister, she's a year and a half younger than me, so I would always convince her to play this game I made up called Life.
Yeah.
And
Aw.
literally in the game, I would like own a bunch of businesses and she would work for me.
Stop. That's so crazy. Wait, that is so cute. Like, that is so wild how that played out in your life.
It's so funny because it never clicked until like the end of college that I was like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
like own a business. But like I just remember I wanted to like I ran like the hair salon and she was like my employee and then
Aw.
stuff like
That's so
that.
cute.
Yeah, and
Wait.
so that definitely should have alerted me that I should be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but I didn't even understand. But then I also was even like before I was like a teenager, like super into like stealing my grandparents' video camera and like taking
Oh,
videos.
yeah.
So I would like just like vlog our adventures like when I was like so little.
Aw.
And so and then I convinced like my sister and my cousin to like be on my talk show. And so I was like, I want to be like on the news someday. Like I want to be like an anchor
That
or
is
something
so
like that.
cute.
Yeah.
They
And then
all
I
played out.
I studied journalism to be a sports reporter. I'm not a sports reporter, but that's what I studied. And then had a YouTube channel and then owned a
Yes.
business. So
Honestly, your old YouTube series where you did interviews, you literally were on TV. That's what that was. Like, that's wild. And you did own a business, which we'll get into. So that's so cool.
yeah.
I love that. I love these what did you want to be when you grew up questions because they always kind of catch me off guard, to be honest.
I know.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay, I have some new questions in a new direction. This is something about Tayla that I love about her, so I want to ask her so much about it because I feel like it's really cool for you all to hear. So I want to know if you can share the moment or series of events that kind of led you to find and follow Jesus and tell us about that a little bit because it's a really cool part of like your testimony. And I feel like I know a little bit about it, but I want everyone to hear it because I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess I always like whenever people ask me that question, I'm always like, where do I start? Because I feel like it was
Yeah.
like a series of events throughout my life that kind of led me to that. But
Yeah.
I grew up Catholic and we would go to church, but it never like clicked for me. I didn't feel like
Yeah.
oh I just didn't feel like I was around a lot of people who were like in love with Jesus. So I never experienced like that side of like Christianity. So I was just like going to church. And then towards the end of high school, I was just like going through a lot of things at home and stuff like that. And so I ended up moving out and moving in with my brother and his wife. And so I lived with them for like the last year or two of high school. And that was like a huge shift in my life. I was obviously going through a lot and everything, but I just remember that they were always there for me. Like they just like took an interest in my life and I just remember being like kind of confused like why do they want me to live with them? Like why do they like care so much? Like why are they like
Mm-hmm.
loving me like this? And it was just something that I didn't feel like I'd ever experienced and I was like, okay, this is like different. But it just like wasn't really clicking for me. But looking back now,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they're Christians. Like they love Jesus and like that overflowed into like how they treated me, how they treated people. And I just remember them walking me through so many things, like even like college applications, like stuff like that, like
Yeah.
always praying with me when I would have like a hard day. And so I think that was like such a huge pivotal like start, like they were planting seeds. And then I went off to college to Ohio State and kind of just did like a typical college life. Like I was going out on the weekends. Like And I was also like making a lot of friends. I was starting doing internships in like sports business and so, or sports like production and stuff like that. So it was like things were like going well on the outside, but I could just tell like there was still like this void inside where I was like sad like a lot, but then I was just like, but things are going well. And so it was just like confusing for me. But I was definitely like filling a lot of voids with like going out with men, with things like that, just like all of the things that you think you want, but then you get them and you're like, oh, I feel like empty. And so I was experiencing that. And I had, okay, another side to this is I had
we love a tangent here.
Yeah, so many tangents. But I had random roommates my freshman year because I think there were like a few people from my high school who went to Ohio State, but no one I was like close friends with or anything. So I was like, I'm just going to start fresh. Like, I'm just going to do random roommates. So I did. And one of my random roommates went to a church on campus. And so she would invite us sometimes. And so I started going a little bit and I was like, okay, this is different than like what I grew up with. Like it was non-denominational, like the songs were different, like everything was different. And I kind of liked it. So I was like, okay. So I went like every once in a while. And I would have said I was a Christian, but I don't think it clicked for me like that. I wasn't like fully like in it. I was just like, oh yeah, I read Bible quotes sometimes, or like I pray and I like.
I think that's a common thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. But I just
felt
didn't.
The same way.
Yeah, I didn't like understand like where I was at really. But I was at church one Sunday and I was just going through. I was having a hard season. And I was at church. This was my sophomore year of college. And this was the church that my roommate had invited me to. And they were talking about a mission trip. And I was like kind of at my wit's end with like where I was at, like mentally, emotionally. And I was like, you know what? Like, I just want to leave the country. Like, that would be like nice, like to just get out of the country.
Yeah.
And it was like a spring break trip. They were going to Guatemala. I was like, I'm going to go. And so I just like signed up for the trip. I didn't know anyone on the trip. I went and then, yeah, it was crazy. But when I was there, I just remember like it was just a whole new experience for me. And like everyone on the trip just had so much joy. Like they were all going through like real life things like I was too, but like they were so like joyful. And they were so kind to me. And I was just like, why are they so kind to me? Like, why are they so joyful? Like, I could tell it was like genuine. And they were just so different from me. And I was like, okay, like they have something I don't have. Like, I know I'm missing something. And so I just remember telling someone on the trip, like, I want to be baptized. And they literally made it happen. The next day, there was a kiddie pool, like, in Guatemala. Like, they
oh my gosh.
Like, I got baptized. And I remember that day being like, I'm going to actually, like, give my life to Jesus. And I remember just, like, feeling like God was speaking to me, saying, like, your life's not over. Like, I still have a future for you, and that he loved me. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm just going to do this. Like, I don't want to go back to Columbus the same. And I didn't go back the same because all my roommates were like, you are like very different when I got back. So I was like, it's been a different life since then. I think it's been about 6 years now. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And that is also a meaning behind one of your tattoos, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes. I was like, Marissa's a tattoo girly. She has to see. Tayla has some Roman numerals.
Yeah, it's 316 because after I got baptized, someone was like, that's so cool that you got baptized on 316 because in the Bible, for 1 John 3:16 is literally like Jesus gave his life for us so that we could have eternal life. And so I was like, wow, like that's a crazy day to get baptized.
Yeah,
that's what I did was like give my life to him and like receive that gift of like eternal life. So it was really cool. And so that's why I got tattooed.
I love it. I love it. Marissa was just talking about she's getting a new tattoo soon. So it reminded me.
Oh, that's cool.
I love that story. I definitely knew part of that story, but I feel like I learned some stuff too. But I want to know, kind of following that along, how do you incorporate your faith into your daily life, especially considering the busy world of like entrepreneurship, but also just regular life stuff? Everybody has a life that can be busy at times.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a journey because when I first started following Jesus, I think it was like, I don't know, when you first find something, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever. And I remember being so like, oh, I want to spend all my time at church. I want to spend like all my time with Jesus. And so my time looked like more structured, I would say, and like more like discipline and just like having more of that time. And I think like I really like having followed Jesus for about 6 years, I think it's been like 6 years now. I feel like I've had so many different seasons. Like there are seasons where it's like, oh my gosh, like I hear God speaking so clearly and like everything like is aligning. Like I just see him in everything. And then there's seasons where I'm like, where is God? Like I know he's real. I know he's like my best friend and like my father and like all these things. But I'm like, but like life is hard and like I don't feel like reading my
this
Bible.
This is scary.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is not what I necessarily signed up for. And so sometimes I do feel that way, and it's just like different seasons I feel different ways, and I think that's like our human emotions. It's like we're not always gonna feel like doing what we're supposed to do, or it's like I feel like a lot of people compare it to a marriage where they're like, you know, sometimes you don't want to be married. Like sometimes you have those seasons where you're like, oh, I'd rather not be married to you right now, which I'm not married, so I can't speak for anyone. But I just feel like I've heard people say that a lot, and I think that's so true. Like you go through like hard seasons. But I feel like right now I would say right now in general, I would say I'm feeling kind of like, okay, I'm 6 years in, like I feel like I'm getting into a place of like more like comfortability in my faith, if that makes sense. Like it feels more natural. It feels like I've just like learned more about like what walking with God looks like for me personally. And I think moving to LA was like helpful for that. Just with like being away from like the people who like my church and my like volunteer community and stuff like that, and just really being like, okay, like this is what it looked like when I was in this flow, when I went to this church or did this thing and like was around these people. But coming out here, I think really made me ask myself, like, what do I want it to look like, and what does God want it to look like for me to follow him? And I think it's surprised me how much he like just cares about like my personality and like just like likes me and like wants to like spend time with me how I like want to spend time, like just doing like hobbies or just like I don't know, even like being at work. I've just had this like, I don't know, like revelation, I guess, over the past few years of like, oh, like it's not like I spend time with God or I go to work or I spend time with God or I make dinner. It's like, no, he's like here all the time, like with me. We're doing this together. So it's like even on busy days, like he's still with me. Like I can still talk to him anytime. And so I feel like I'm in a place of like almost like settling in and getting more comfortable in my faith.
Yeah, it's like a big part of who you are, I feel like, and that's kind of like falling into place almost.
Yeah.
With that, and this is my last like directly faith related question, but I want to ask you if over the last 6 years that you're talking about, were there any like big challenges or doubts that you faced that you had to overcome, and or what advice would you give to someone else who might be struggling with faith or is on the fence about following Jesus?
Yeah, I would say, wait, the first part of your question was if I've had any like struggles with, I would say in general, when things are really hard for like a season or like an extended season, I think that has been hard for me. Just balancing like, okay, God is good, but my life is really hard. And like, I know he cares about me, but like, why doesn't he like do X, Y, Z, or like, why doesn't he do this? And so I think that's just like a question that we like will all wrestle with like on earth. And that's like, you know, people always ask the question like, if God's good, like why do people die, or like why does this happen? So I think that's just like a human thing in our hearts. But I would say in 2020 that was like a pivotal time for me where it was one of the hardest years of my life. I had severe PTSD and I had it for actually years, but that was like first year I was experiencing it, and that like threw me for a loop because I'd been following Jesus for a few years at that point. I think like 2 years at that point. And so it was like rainbows and sunshine for the first 2 years. I was like, this is amazing. Like, wow. Like, I don't know. It was just amazing. But then I remember when that happened, I was like, okay, so following God doesn't mean that these terrible things aren't going to happen to me.
And it was like, things don't go away just because of this thing too.
Yeah.
And it was like, one of the hardest things I'd ever gone through. But also I think I questioned a lot of like, why did God let this happen? If I like am asking him every day, like, is this what you want me to do? Are these the things you want me to do? And so like, how does something terrible happen when I'm like following God's plan for my life to the best of my ability? And so I think that really made me like dive into the question, like, is God really good? And I'm glad I did. And I feel like people shy away from those questions and they're like, you know, like, oh, don't ask that because like, yeah, of course he's good. But then I had to like really wrestle and be like, okay, like, does he really care about my heart? Like, does he really care about like what I'm going through? Or does he just want to like make me into this, like whatever he wants me to be, even if it hurts me? And so I think I had to like process through that. But at the end of the day, I just remember like, when I would look back, I would just remember like the days when I would be like sitting on the floor, like crying, like unable to like do anything, like just really in a bad place. I remember like feeling like Jesus was sitting right next to me, and that like changed. There was like this moment. Cool. Sorry, there's a lot of tangents, but
I love it.
There was this moment when I first started serving at the Dream Center in 2020, which is a nonprofit, and they do a lot of homeless ministry. And so I had started doing that in the fall of 2020 when I was like going through this. But I remember it was COVID, so we were like outside serving meals instead of inside. And I remember all of our guests that would come for a meal would like sit on the ground and like eat their meal, or like sit on the sidewalk, sit on the steps. And for some reason, like I had just never just sat on a sidewalk. And like in Columbus, I was like, that seems like gross to me. Like, why would I sit on the sidewalk? Like, it's a sidewalk. But then I just remember like feeling like God was like, I want you to sit with them. Like, I want you to sit down. And I just like, this is so like silly, but I just remember being like, but I'm wearing like these jeans I like I don't want to get them.
Oh yeah.
Like I just remember being so silly in my head.
That's funny.
But then I just remember like God really wanted me to sit down. I was like, okay, I'll sit down. And so I did. And then I clearly felt like the Lord was just like, that's what I did with you all summer. Like I was sitting with you the whole time. And that like just changed my perspective, because I was like, God was not like far off when I was like going through what I was going through. Like he was literally like sitting with me, and like the humility that it took for him to sit down, like I got to see like a small glimpse of like me like doing that, and then being like, oh, like that's what like the King of like everything did like for me in that moment. And so that just took me on a journey of learning like the humility of Jesus and how much like he cares about our hearts. And like if you read through the Gospels, like in the Bible, where it talks about like what Jesus did when he was on earth, it's like he would go and sit with people. Like he would sit with people who were hurting, who were broken, who were just sick, all of these things. He would sit with people who were prostitutes, who were tax collectors, the people that nobody wanted to like sit with. And so I think just like reading through that made me realize like how humble he is, and like how much he really, really cares. And so that kind of like that wrestling brought me to a conclusion of like knowing him more, if that makes sense.
That's cool. I really like that story. I've never heard that story from you. So I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, because I want to talk about other things I love about Tayla. That's just one of them, but there are many. But I want to talk really honestly pretty briefly about your post-grad experience, because you've had a lot of experience post-grad, let me just say. I feel like Tayla's done so much since graduating college, which is amazing. But I want to note that you had like some really interesting post-grad jobs. Like there's a few I can think of that I'm just like, I can't believe Tayla did this and this and this. It's so cool. So can you tell us about one of your post-grad jobs? Just pick any one that had like a significant impact on you.
Yes. There's two. Can I do two?
Yes.
Okay. So I remember when I graduated college, I graduated in the winter. So I graduated a semester early, and I couldn't find a job right away. So I was just like babysitting, nannying. And that was like a tougher season too. But then I got my first job. Literally, I started when COVID hit. Like I remember that week stuff started shutting down, and it was in person in Columbus. And yeah. And so I started going to the office. It was kind of a mess. Like the whole experience.
Goodness. I can't even imagine.
It was so bad. Like one of the worst jobs I've ever had. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's okay.
We could cut that. Don't worry.
No, you can keep it in there. It's okay.
That's funny.
But it was so bad. And I think it was a mix of things. I was going through a lot in my personal life. This was literally right before I started experiencing PTSD, which led to me quitting my job. But I worked there for literally like a month and a half to 2 months. And I remember being so torn up. I was like, I can't quit this job. And I remember crying every day in my car. Like I was going through so much in all aspects of my life. And I was like breaking. And I was like, I have to just keep going. And I just remember like talking to someone on the phone and them being like, hey, like, you don't have to do this. Like, it's okay. It's okay. And I just remember being like, okay, like, I'm going to quit. And so I quit. And then I ended up moving, like, back home for the summer as I was, like, going through all this stuff. And so I feel like that was super significant for me, because I had such a tight grip on like, I have to have the perfect like resume and like career. And I was like, if I quit this job, my life is over. And I'm like, that's so funny now. I'm like, my life is not over because of that one job.
No, not even
like,
close.
Yeah, for sure. No. But like at the time it seems like the end of the world. And I think that kind of put into perspective for me, like not caring as much, or just being like, it's all going to be fine. Like, jobs are jobs. Yeah, everything works out. And so that was significant for me. And it taught
That's
me.
like something I feel like they tell you in college too. It's like they kind of encourage you to like stick with it. They're like, no one wants to hire someone who's not been at a job for 5 years. It's like, that's so not the case. It's not. And prioritizing mental health is bigger than it's ever been. And so I feel like that's such a myth in college, is that they kind of make you believe you shouldn't quit. And I'm not saying you should just quit when things first get hard, but like if you're really struggling with something, quitting's not going to ruin your life or your resume even.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't put it on my resume.
Exactly. Just leave it off. Like, no one will know.
Yeah.
How will they know?
Exactly. Yeah, but that I think was, just a really significant experience, and kind of like led me on a journey of being okay with my career looking different than I thought it was going to look, and just like letting go of things when I felt like it was time to let go, but also like trying different things versus just being like, I have to do this one path.
That makes sense. I feel like Marissa and I are both a little perfectionist as well in our lives. So I feel like I could see myself also being like, I can't quit. Like, how's it going to look? And I need to get my resume just right and all that stuff. I could totally relate to that, feeling that way. Yeah. But okay. Did you want to tell us your second one?
I can't remember. Do you want me to keep going on tangents?
Yes. No, okay. I love it.
Okay. I would say
now I have to know.
Well, I feel like there's so many career experiences I've had, because even like throughout college I had like internships, and I've always loved career. I've always loved like pursuing something, having a goal. But I did work for a small agency that actually the job came out of me quitting another job. And
that's so funny.
Yeah, I feel like I always quit jobs when I don't have anything else lined up. I don't know why. It just like feels right. I just do it.
I'm crying.
Yeah, I don't know why I do it. But
hey, you've gotten this far. She's in LA now, guys. Like, it worked out okay.
It worked out okay. But usually it's like I can tell like, okay, it's time.
Yeah.
But I remember I quit an agency job that I was at, and then I ended up meeting someone at my church who owned an agency. I started working for him and his family, and I think that was that was probably the first time I ever have experienced work feeling just like it can be like, I guess I don't know how to explain it, but we were like really close friends. And so I saw like what a working relationship looked like when my work felt super like purposeful, and like, okay, I'm working to build this company that my friends own. And like, I care about the work that we're doing. I see all the effort they're putting into. And so that just taught me a lot about like caring about your work and caring about like the people that work for you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that also is like, I should have paid you for that segue, because that's a perfect segue to my next section, which is talking about Tayla's small business that she started herself. So I want to get into that a little bit. I want to know what inspired you to start Naz Thrift, both online and as a brick and mortar store, because even though I do know this story and I got to be a really big part of it, which I'm thankful for, I'm really excited for you to tell us.
Yes, Arika was a huge part of Naz Thrift. It would not have happened without her. Fun. Let me tell you, she was my biggest supporter. Her and Angela would come to all of my events, help me.
Angela was our help. He was our muscles.
Yes. I just remember him always bringing that chair, the flag chair.
Yes, wait, that's so funny. Angela's that's Oma's chair. Marissa randomly, Oma gave us some camp chairs, and he would always bring his own chair to the pop-up.
That's so funny.
I know.
Yes. And they were my biggest supporters. But I started Naz Thrift, funny enough, the summer that I was going through all the hard stuff that I talked about in 2020.
Yeah.
I had tried to start a business before that. So I guess let me start with what kind of got me into like, I want to start a business.
Yes.
So my last semester of college, like I said, when I was younger, I always was like entrepreneurial, but then I was just like, didn't understand that I could do that as a job. I was like, I'm going to be a journalist, like a sports broadcaster, whatever you want to call it. So I studied journalism. My last semester at Ohio State, they were like, you have like some electives. I think that's what it's called, right? Electives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then I was like, okay, like, let me take this entrepreneurship class. Like the timing worked out for what I wanted my schedule to be. And I was like, I'm interested in entrepreneurship. And I had like taken on clients during college to do like video work and social media. I feel like if I had an idea, I was just like, let me just try. And so I just like had these random clients that I just like did work for. So I was like kind of like entrepreneurial already like throughout college. But I took the class and I ended up like just really getting along with my professor. I loved the class. Like I think I got like a 98 or 99%, like the best grade I've ever gotten in a class. And I was like, I'm a journalism major and I'm getting like almost 100% in a business class. but then my professor was really big on like, we're not just here to like read a textbook, like we're like doing real life things. Like I want you guys to be able to like apply this to your actual like careers and lives. And so he would like give us extra credit if we like went to like did a pitch contest. So I remember doing like a pitch contest. I remember like going to all these extracurricular like meetings and stuff. And then I think it was one of our projects was to like think of a business idea, I want to say. Or maybe it was about the pitch contest, but I just remember he was like, if anyone wants to meet with me before or after class, like to talk about your business idea, like I'm always free to meet. And so I just started meeting with him like before or after class, and I just loved our time. Like it was just so amazing, and I would get so excited. And he ended up helping me try to start my first business, which is gonna be like a media company. And I had this whole idea behind it, and it didn't end up working out. And then I, like I said, was going through a bunch of life stuff after I graduated. But then the summer of 2020, I was like, I want to like try to start another business, but I was really nervous because I was like coming out of like, I don't know, some burnout, just all the things with like quitting my first job that I was like in shambles about. And my confidence was very, very low. But I was like, you know what, like I'm just going to do it because like I want to do it and it'll be fun. And so I just started Naz Thrift, and I think I started with like $50 or something, like just went to the thrift store. Yeah, I was, because I wanted to start a clothing line, but I was like, I don't have the money for that, so I'm just gonna like start flipping clothes, because people would always compliment my clothes, and I'd be like, oh, I got it like at Goodwill, or like got it at like the secondhand store. And so I just felt like I had an eye for it, and so I started thrifting items. I started an Instagram account. I would just flip them. I made some money, spend it on more thrift stuff, would flip it, and then eventually realized like, oh, the items that I love selling the most are vintage. And so, because at first I was just flipping like anything, but then I was like, but then I was like, okay, I love like 90s vintage stuff like that. And so I started flipping that. And then I had worked at an agency for a bit. I think I worked there for like 7 or 8 months. And then I really felt like God was telling me to like quit my job. And I was like, oh, I don't have anything lined up. But it was very clear. Like this was the clearest time he's ever told me to like quit something. So I was like, okay. So I quit. And then I actually met my next agency boss that day when I said like, okay, I'll quit tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
Yeah, I was literally, I was at church and I'd been praying about it. And I was like feeling like every time I would go to work, I felt like I should quit. And I was like, oh gosh. But then I was at church and my pastor was praying, and he's like, I feel like someone like in here, like you're thinking about making like a career change, like a shift, and like you need to know that you heard the Holy Spirit right. And I was like, what the heck? Like my friend like looked at me and we were like, what the heck? And so I was like, okay. And so I told God like, I'll quit tomorrow morning. And then I met my boss that day at church, because I was going to join the creative team at church, and he was like running the creative team. And so then he was like, oh yeah, I'm like looking for freelancers. I was like, okay. And so then I just started working for him. But I had a 2-month gap in between, because we would like try to meet, and it just took a while for the process. And so in that 2 months, I had a bunch of free time, obviously. And so that's when I really was like, okay, I built the website. Arika and I started doing like photo shoots, and she was my model. And we just like started like actually doing it. And then it started picking up like more traction. Had the online store, started doing pop-up shops, and then it just kind of like took off from there. It was like, didn't like take off like, oh my gosh, I got 1 million sales, but it just like started growing, and things just started like clicking. Yeah,
it was a really fun time, I have to say. First of all, Tayla has like immaculate taste. Like I feel like we didn't harp on that enough. Her style is so cool, and I do like when she says, like sometimes people told me, no, people tell her a lot. I feel like people would stop you and be like, that shirt's so cool, and you'd be like, oh yeah, like I have this business. Like it's just so cool. And the vintage stuff, she did have an eye for. It was really awesome. I have a question, follow up. Is the professor of that entrepreneurship class who is your mentor now?
Yeah,
I did not
Paul.
Realize.
He's my mentor now.
I didn't realize that. That's so cute, because she still talks to him a lot, and I recognize that, but I didn't realize that was your teacher in that class. That's so cute.
Yeah, and
I love it.
He's the one who's inspired me to someday want to like teach classes. Like I want to be an adjunct professor on the side, and he inspired me.
Aww. Yeah. I have like so much. I have questions then too to follow up too, because I know Arika was there to like help you with the business and everything. So how did you go from like realizing like, okay, this store is like doing well, I'm like selling like pieces, to making the jump and like buying the brick and mortar storefront?
Yeah, it definitely was a
Scary
jump. Scary jump. Scary jump. But I just knew,
Jump scare, if you will.
jump scare. I just like knew that I had a vision for the business and I wanted to like bring people together and I wanted it to grow. And so I was like, I want to have my own store where I can like also host events. And like to me, it just felt like that was a way to like actually have people come together versus like pop-up shops. You know, you're there for like 4 hours or whatever, but then like you don't have like a gathering place and you can't like really build something. And so I really wanted to like build something. And so I want to say it was like a year process maybe from me being like, okay, this is something I want to do to actually doing it. But I was trying for a while. I was trying to get funding, couldn't get funding, like would go to the bank, try to get, or not grants, loans, couldn't get loans. Just like all of that stuff, like so many hurdles, but I ended up finding a really awesome realtor and he was so great. And like, I would consider him probably one of my mentors in that time. And he would just like help me so much. And I ended up finding a space and then we went and toured it. And I had been like meeting with like a developer to try and get like this big, huge space. I was trying to get like a huge loan to do it, but it just like wasn't working out. And so then I found this like really like small space in Grandview, which is like a part of Columbus. And I was just like, this just feels more Naz Thrift anyways. Like it felt more like unassuming, like just like a little like physical space. And I was like, I can fix this up. I can make it nicer. Like I just had a vision for it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And it was a huge risk because I did not have what I needed to start the store. And so even just seeing like the provision there, it was like so cool because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like it was a huge risk. And looking back, I'm like, I don't know how, I don't know how it all came
how
together.
We did it.
Yeah. But it was just such a cool accomplishment to see it happen and to just be like, and it was shorter lived than I thought it was going to be. But I'm glad with the timing. I'm glad like with all the things I learned. I think at the time I was like, dang, like I don't want to shut this down. Like I want to like really like, you know, grow it and everything. But the timing was right to shut it down. And looking back, I'm like, okay, I learned so much. Like I feel like honestly the biggest thing I learned was like that I can do anything because I'm like if I can do that, like I always tell myself if I have like a hard day at work or like a hard day in life, I'm like, but if I got through that I can do anything.
Honestly.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I have one more follow-up question. How did you get the name?
The name.
Love that you asked that.
So
yes.
That's also a tattoo.
Okay.
yes, the tattoo.
Yes, but the name, so it came from this verse in the Bible. It's John 1:46, and it's where Jesus is introduced as Jesus of Nazareth. And the person says, Nazareth, can anything good come from there? And so I was like really curious about that. And so like the more research I did, the more I realized that it wasn't a place that you'd expect like Jesus to come from. Like you'd think like he'd come from like he's royalty, like his dad is like the king of everything. So it's like you'd think he would come from like a prominent place, but it was literally like a small town. Like he was a carpenter, like just all these like little things where I was just like, he's so unassuming. And like the people that he spent time with, like I said, like at that time it was right before I had started like doing homeless ministry. And so it all like was coming together and just seeing like how much beauty was in like people and places and things that were like being discarded because, you know, like you go to a thrift store, like some people don't like shopping at thrift stores because it's like, oh, I have to dig to find anything good. And like, you know, they're used clothes and stuff like that. And so I just started to see like all these parallels between like what I was selling, the fact that I was like raising awareness for the Dream Center and things like that, which is the homeless ministry that I was a part of. And so it kind of all just like tied together. But I also like, obviously when I picked the name, like I hadn't started doing the volunteering. I hadn't like really had a full picture. It kind of like all just came together. And I was like, this is like coming together more perfectly than I could have ever like thought. But it was also like me starting a journey of, like I said, learning like the humility of Jesus and like seeing him like sit with me, but also like going through a lot of like inner restoration in my life, like going through therapy, like doing treatment and stuff like that. And I just watched God heal like parts of my heart. And like I put in a lot of work to like work through a lot of like deep inner things. And so watching God like restore me and my heart and just being like, he's also restoring people. And like I'm finding these clothing items that are like rare, like vintage items. And like I'm digging them out of like the thrift store, like people's basements or wherever I was going to get them.
People that we'd meet off Facebook.
Yes. Sometimes dangerous endeavors to get these clothes.
But it was worth it. You got to sell the good pieces.
Yes,
she did. And can you tell us if you remember it? Because I'm like, I know part of it, but I don't want to butcher it. Can you tell us the tagline or like the main mission statement of Naz Thrift? Because I feel like that's perfect.
Yeah, it was bringing new life and restoration to clothing people in the streets of Columbus.
Aww.
So good. Mic drop. Like, I just love that. I knew I would jumble it all up, but so good.
You're like, I know I put it on so many graphics, but I can't remember.
Right. I'm like, I know it was around.
Exactly.
I love that. Naz Thrift is like such a fun part of my life, so I'm thankful for that. And I will say, like, something that was so cool watching Tayla do this, because I just want to put this in here, is this, like, Tayla was never, I don't know, she was never so focused on like, this business needs to do well financially so that I can make money to put in my pocket. Like, it was always so community based. So I know that Tayla brushed on that a little bit, but I feel like that was the main, I feel like part of it was always about community. It was always about people. It was always about that restoration piece. And when she talked about having a storefront, I always remember in my mind, I'm like, Tayla didn't want a storefront for the glory of selling clothes to people in a store. Like, it was never that. I just remember her being like, oh my gosh, if I had a storefront, Arika, think of like the Bible studies I could host and the women I could bring in and the people I could help and serve. And that was like so cool to see, because it's a different approach to business that you don't see often, but when you do, that's when you know, like, this is like a damn cool business. Like, I love that piece. So I just want to put that in, because I was like, that is one of the coolest parts about it to me, is like, that's what it was about. Like, it was about people.
That's so sweet.
So I love it. Yeah. But okay, so again, moving kind of on, our last section before we get into our hot seat questions, which are always very fun. But I want to ask you just briefly, like, what motivated you to move from Columbus to LA, especially completely on your own? You kind of like unwarrantedly did this by yourself. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so that was a big step that Tayla took. And I was like, I remember kind of being by your side as you made that decision, and we were going to go there together, and it was a whole thing. So what inspired that?
Yeah, so similar to all my other life decisions, it was a mix of me being, what's the right word? What word? Me being adventure seeking, sporadic,
yes, a little spontaneous.
Spontaneous.
It was like you were kind of like ready for a new adventure. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I was. I think it was a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah.
I would say, like, when I first visited, I think it was like 2021, I came out here to volunteer at the Dream Center out here, because this is where it started. They had like a whole rehab program out here. And I remember just feeling like really like called to come out here. I was like, I really just feel like God wants me to go visit LA. And like, I have no idea why. Like, I never thought like, oh, I want to visit LA or I want to live there. Like, never had been to the West Coast, but I was like, okay, like that's kind of random, but I'll do it. So my friend and I like bought flights, and we flew out like a few weeks later. We just were like, okay. And so we just like came out and we like volunteered for a week. And I just remember like, I was like, oh my gosh, like I love this place. And I remember just like sitting there one night at sunset, like watching the sunset over the mountains and the Hollywood sign. I was like, what, this is like a different, like, I felt so like peaceful and like happy. And I was like, okay, like I love it here. And like, I just remember hearing the stories of people who like went through the program that I was like here, like volunteering with. And people would be like, yeah, like a few years ago, like I was on the street doing like meth, and now like I work for a church, or like I work I work at the Dream Center, or like I like am back with my family, or like my marriage is like fixed. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? Like I just like kept meeting people like that, and I was like, okay, this is like crazy. And it was like all in line with like things that I wanted to see, like through Naz Thrift, through like the volunteering that I was doing. I was like, I know a lot of people who are like going through addiction, and I'm like giving them a meal on a Friday night, but like this is different. Like this is people's lives like being changed. Like they don't need to keep coming back for meals because they're like better. Like so how does that happen? And so I just remember like I was on the plane home after my first trip, and I like cried because I was like, I felt like at home here. And I was like, that is, I've never felt that in a physical place before. And so I knew like something was up. And then when I got home, I just remember I like started having dreams like throughout the next, like, I would say like 2 years. I think it was a 2-year journey. And like, I don't know. This is probably, some people might think this is weird, but for me, like one of the ways I hear God is through dreams. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had a dream, and like shortly after I got back from my first visit, and in the dream I was living in LA. And I was like, that's really interesting because I felt like I was at home when I was there, like very interesting. And so I just like wrote the dream down and then was like, okay, whatever. But then I had like a few more and I was like, okay. And then I would like come visit. And every time I would visit, I was like, I don't want to go home. Like, I want to stay here. But then I also was like building my business and like had a job I loved at the time. And so I was like, I feel like Ohio is where I need to be right now. But like, I just kept like praying about it, thinking about it. And then finally, I felt like a lot of doors like closed for me. And I was like, okay, like I was hitting some dead ends, like going through some stuff, and I was like, I think it's like time. And I felt just like unfulfilled. I was like, I just want to go see what it's like to like serve people instead of like doing marketing, doing business. Like I just want to like lay all this down and have like a little bit of an easier like season, and I want to just like do something that I'm really passionate about and like have that rest. And so I ended up moving out here, but it was like a decision that I was like wrestling with. I was anxious about, like financially, I was quitting my job, I was shutting down my store, like it was a lot. But I just remember being like, I know that this is like the right thing for me, and I know that like if I keep pushing through and I never do this, like I'm gonna regret it. You know, when people say like you don't want to be like 90 years old being like, oh, I wish I did that thing I wanted to do. So I feel like that's always kind of been my motto, where I'm like, if there's something that's really like I really need to do this, or like I'm so passionate about this, like as long as it's not anything bad, I usually will do it.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. I feel like that's a really good philosophy though.
Yeah.
It's like I always can tell when when I'm debating like, do I want to do this or not? I'm like, I think I would regret not doing it more than doing it and failing. So I feel like that's a good like way to look at it too. But it's been really cool to watch Tayla move to LA. I mean, it was cool for me to get to go visit. I was like so excited to go see like Tayla's whole new, I mean, I got to meet some of her friends and just like see this whole new way that she like flourished when she got to LA. So that was really cool. But I also want to know how, if at all, LA has changed your perspective on life or your career or both.
Yes. It has changed it a lot, I feel like. I think this kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier, when we talked about like experiencing God, like how I'm experiencing God, like in busyness and stuff like that. Because I feel like it goes hand in hand with like my journey of like becoming more of myself. And I feel like coming to LA, like I said, like I got taken out of like all of my comforts and everything that like made me me. But then I got here and I was like, it was interesting because I was like, okay, all of these things are such a part of my identity and I lost them. So there was kind of like an identity crisis where I was like, who am I? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then there was also this like unearthing of like things that were in me that I was like, okay, like I'm also like getting rid of old things that aren't really a part of me anymore. And I'm like becoming more of myself. It was just like it's been a very interesting journey, but I would say I feel like more of myself, but also I don't know. It's like a mix. It's like growing and changing is like I feel more of myself, but I'm also like losing parts of myself. But then I'm like changing into someone different. And so I feel like I have just learned a lot about myself and what I want in life. I think that's been a huge thing because when I moved out here, I remember I was like, I need an adventure. Like I need like something different. I need to try something different. And it's funny because moving out here, like experiencing homesickness and also like getting older, like I turned 27 and I was just like, oh, wait, like I want to have babies and like buy a house. And I'm like, people don't do that here. Well, they do, but like it's rare.
Right. It's different for sure.
It's a different like mindset. It's different reasons that people are here. And so I think that even has made me ask myself like, okay, like in this season of life, like what do I want? And I think even just seeing that I'm like maturing and like growing in that way and just like getting old, I guess, has been so interesting.
Not old, but I hear you. I totally hear you.
So I know with moving, like we've already talked about, like you were in school for like sports journalism, you started businesses, you've done marketing stuff. So what does your like career look like now that you've completely moved to the other side of the country? Has the career shifted as well?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yes, it has. So when I came out here, I did the volunteer program that I came to do for 3 months. So that was working with a women's rehab program. And that was super impactful and cool. But I think through that, I kind of thought like, oh, I'm going to get out here and I'm going to want to like go study social work, like go back to school, like help people full time. Like that'll be the most like best thing I can do for the world. And then when I got out here, I started doing it. I was like I love the women I worked with. It was amazing. Like I still talk to them to this day, and seeing their growth has been so cool. But like shortly after I got here, I looked around and I would see other people who were doing what I was doing. And I was like, they are really good at this. I am struggling emotionally. Like it's heavy. Like I'm used to doing marketing, like I like using my brain, and now I'm using my heart for work. And like
that's so true.
It was so different. And I was like, you know what? Like this is not me. Like I like this like in doses, but like this is not what I'm made to do. And so I think that was a cool reset for me to be like, okay, this is what I thought would be the best thing I could do. But then I had to be like, okay, like the best thing I can do is what I'm actually like made to do. And so that was a cool revelation. And then I was like still freelancing in marketing on the side when I was doing that. And so I had kept that throughout this whole time. So I've been still working in marketing and then also managing a retail store, which is funny because I left Ohio thinking I'm going to be done managing a retail store and be done doing marketing. And now
here you are.
It's like you can't escape it.
Never.
True.
That is really cool though,
funny.
because I think like that's a really hard realization that you have to have with yourself, because you find so much passion in what you do, but it takes a really smart person to know that they can't do it full time.
Yep.
Agree. It's also like, I feel like that's sometimes for me at least, that would be hard to admit to myself. I'd be like, I would just want it to work so bad that I would be like, like to admit I'm not as good at some, but you're right. It's like the people who are around you are good at it, and they should, they should be doing it. The people who are good at it should be the ones doing it. Like I totally see that. And you've been able, I feel like you have a plethora of other ways to serve that, play to your strengths, I guess.
Yeah. And you've also been saying that you can do it in doses. There's nothing saying that you can't still. You just have to find something else that you can use your brain for while your heart is used sparingly.
Yes,
I love that. The brain and the heart. I never thought of that, but once you said it, I was like, whoa, that's so true.
Yeah.
I'm a brain girly too. I feel like if I had to use my heart a lot, I would also struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Okay, so that is the end of the questions we have for Tayla pertaining to like Tayla's life and all of those things. But I do want to do some really fun, like rapid fire personality questions, because these are just quick and really fun. So I thought this one is a great one to start with. We've asked all our guests this, but I want to ask you what your Spotify, you use Spotify, right?
Yeah.
You use Apple. You use Spotify. Both. Okay. I want to ask what your Spotify day list is right now. So me and Marissa can say ours first if you want to like look yours up on your phone.
Okay.
But my day list right now, when I open it, it's called, this is so silly, it's called Father's Day Cowboy Sunday Evening. I'm like, what the heck?
Mine is so funny. No, you go again, Arika.
Yes. Mine is called Father's Day Cowboy Sunday Evening. Like,
that's
what?
Funny.
It's so random. Like, it's not even close to Father's Day. Why does it say that?
Mine is Millennial 2000s Evening.
Ooh, okay. I see that for you.
Is there a way to find this playlist?
Okay, yeah. Just go to search in Spotify and just type in day list, one word.
Okay.
And it should be one of the first ones. It says day list, and it will have a funny title.
Okay. My day list is hype camp song Sunday evening.
Oh, wait, that's cute. It kind of reminds me of, I never was like a SpongeBob watcher, but you know the SpongeBob, like the campfire song one?
Yeah.
That's what that reminds me of.
That's funny.
That's so cute, actually. Okay, this is a particular to Tayla question because I know that you love a Sunday. What's your favorite way to spend a Sunday?
My favorite way, I guess I would say it's changed since moving to Los Angeles.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because I will typically go to church in the morning, and I go to church on the west side, which is closer to the beach. So sometimes going to the beach, and I don't do this super often, but ideal like Sunday would be grabbing a good coffee, going to the beach, walking around, getting like brunch or dinner with friends.
Yeah.
I think just like spending time with people, because even just like going to church, like my friend Danielle goes with me. And so it's like, oh, it's like our fun little, like, that's how we see each other every week, because she lives a little further from me. And so we'll just do that. And sometimes we'll like go grab food or coffee after. And so spending time with her is always fun, or just like with my other friends. But I like to be outside, be in the sun, get some good coffee, and relax.
I love that. It sounds like a dream. And that's, again, a perfect segue. Like, I swear, you guys, I didn't pay her. But what is your go-to coffee order? I feel like I know this. Wait, can I guess your go-to coffee order? Wait,
yeah,
no.
there's two.
Wait.
Guess. Yeah.
Okay. It's a cold brew with a little vanilla? Question mark. No. Cold. Okay, well, I can think of, you like a cold brew with a pumpkin cold foam? Question mark? I'm not getting them. Tell us. Okay. I feel like I'm close, but I feel like I'm not hitting the mark.
You're so close. If I'm getting cold brew, if I'm like getting like Starbucks, it's like cold brew with oat milk and vanilla.
Okay.
Yep. So you were super close. And then
yes,
if
I'm oat milk.
Yeah, sad. It's because she hates oat milk. She's like, let's just forget it exists. Okay?
Yeah, forget about it.
But if it's not that, if I'm going to like a good coffee shop, like a local one, then I'll get like a latte with vanilla, an oat milk latte with vanilla.
Classic. Yeah, I feel like that tracks, because that's usually what I would go for too.
Yeah.
But apparently with almond milk now. Okay, tell us your fall drink though.
My fall drink. So I used to be super into fall drinks, but for some...
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I used to, but I would say, okay, I don't know if you count cinnamon as like fall.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I do this year round, but I put cinnamon on my coffee.
So good.
It's so
I did that at your house, actually. I remember doing that.
Yes.
It's delish. Okay, what's one thing that you can't go a day without?
Oh, this is going to be so bad, but TikTok.
Wait, I love that answer for you.
I hate that about myself right now, but...
That was unexpected. I thought you were going to say, like, my phone. Like, I don't know, my Bible, like, I don't know, a coffee, but TikTok. I love that for you. That's hilarious.
I was thinking tote bag. Like, I see Tayla always having a tote bag, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
I do always have a tote bag.
That's true. That's a good point. That's facts. Okay, if you could travel, I love this one. If you could travel anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you travel to?
I would go back to Mexico. I went there for the first time this year. Oh my gosh. Loved it.
That's a great answer. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Hey, it's not that far.
It's not. I could drive.
Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite? Okay, now I feel kind of bad that I included this, but what's your favorite way to stay active? Not trying to rub it in. I just realized the perspective on that one, but I do wonder.
It's funny because I have a chronic injury, if anyone's wondering.
It's funny because, I'm dead. It's funny because I didn't think about that one. Whoops.
It's okay,
but when you do have the chance, or like, what will be like your first activity back? That's actually like a good question. Like, what's your first activity back? With your favorite thing?
Maybe a cycling class
with me, and I'll just complain the whole time so you can feel better about yourself, because I suck so bad.
That's funny. Yeah, a cycling class would be fun. Any type of like workout class. But I also love like walks with friends. That's like my favorite way to catch up, because it's like we're getting like. I used to do it like after work a lot with friends when I lived in Ohio. I'd be like, you want to go on a walk? And then we would just like talk about our day, talk about our week, but then also like, get a workout in. And so that's like one of my favorite things to do. Oh, wait.
Me too. I'm addicted to hiking.
Sorry.
What's your other one? Wait. Is this one even more?
Yeah. Can you guess?
You lied. Wait. Hit.
No. Pickleball.
Oh, pickleball. I'm like,
forgot.
You were a big hit girly in your prime, I feel like.
Yeah.
I just remember you always telling me like, oh, I'm going to a hit class. I'm like, I'm scared of you.
Hit class.
Yeah, pickleball. That's a good one. I have pickleball rackets. I never even use them. Or paddles, whatever they're called. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think, I don't know.
I need to go. We need to get into it, apparently. I'll have to play you sometime. Okay, what's your favorite comfort food?
Okay, comfort food. Honestly, I'm like a comfort drink person.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah, so I feel like my comfort drinks are either a coffee, like just going out and getting a coffee. Like if I'm like super like having a bad day or like on edge, I'm like, I just need a coffee, like just a coffee break. Yep. And so then I just want to go get a coffee.
That's so good.
Yes, it's the best. But if it's not coffee, Olipop is like my favorite drink ever.
I forgot about this. Yeah, that's so true.
Good.
I got Tayla Olipop for Christmas last year.
She did.
That's so true. I can't believe I forgot about that. That's so good. Okay, last rapid fire question. This one's kind of fun, but if you had to choose one book or podcast that you could recommend to all of our listeners, what would you recommend?
I would probably recommend a book. I have a few favorites.
I have a guess of what you're going to say.
What?
I think you're going to tell them to read the book by the Nike founder.
That's one of them.
Yay! I knew it. I was like, Tayla's been telling me to read this book forever. I need to get on it, honestly. Maybe we should do a book club on it.
We should. I've read it like 3 times.
That'd be good. Oh my gosh.
It's so good. But it's called Shoe Dog, and the founder of Nike wrote it, and it's all about his journey. And I remember I read it in college, and then I've read it like 3 or 4 times after. But it's just so comforting because he's had like a crazy journey, and like hearing all of his mistakes made me feel better about my journey. And so funny. I'm just like, oh, if the founder of Nike turned out okay, I'll turn out okay.
That's fair. That's kind of like when people say like we have the same amount of hours in the day as Beyonce. It's like if they can do it, we can do it too.
Yeah.
That's so good. Do you have another one? Since I guessed that one from you, do you have any others that you want to suggest?
I would say there's 2 others. I really love The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. It is, I don't know if you guys have read any C.S. Lewis, but he's like a really, like, he's not alive anymore, but he's like an older writer. But he writes like Christian books, but he wrote a book from the perspective of a demon trying to turn a Christian not into a Christian. It's so like wow, cool. Like, I don't know. It's not,
I never heard of that.
It's really good. It's not dark or anything, but I've read that probably like 5 times.
Wow.
It's so good. But then
you're a big rereader. I didn't realize this.
I am. And I think it's because I'm so picky about like movies and books that if I find something, I'm like, oh, let me watch it 5 times.
Wait, I have to say something right now. I just have to like justify my life to Marissa. You'll never guess, Marissa. Tayla doesn't like movies either.
I know.
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of movies either, so I'm not offended. Kyle, however, would be offended.
You can tell him I got another one to rally my troops. Here we come. No, I mean, Tayla and I watched a movie together at Christmas. Like, we will watch a movie, but it's definitely not my favorite of all time. So I just had to say that on the podcast, though, because I know a lot of my ops are listening.
Your ops.
Yeah. Anyway, you had a third book, I think, before I was cutting you off.
Yes, you didn't cut me off. It's okay. The last one I would say is it's called Let My People Go Surfing, and it's by the founder of Patagonia. It's really good.
Oh, this is another one you've told me about, and I actually am very interested. I'll put all of these in the stories for the people listening. But okay, tell us about this one.
This one is basically his journey. If you guys know, Patagonia, it's like obviously a clothing brand, but he cares way more about like the mission than he does about the clothing brand. And he talks about that in his book. He's like, I didn't even really want to be a business owner. Like, it just kind of like happened, but it's so missionally based, and they do like cool documentaries, and like, it's just all about the mission. And so he talks about how he got his team on board in the early days, and how they like keep people who work for him like aligned to the mission. And it's all about like building a story brand, like how he did it, and like how you can build a brand around like a cause. And so it's really interesting.
That's such an interesting name for the book, like Let My People Go Surfing, because I think of Patagonia and I'm like, sweatshirts.
Right.
Yeah. It is interesting.
That's so true. Sorry guys, I'm writing these down because they're so good, and I want to make sure that our listeners get to read the recommendations. I'm going to link them on our story. So if you guys are listening and you think these books sound good, head over to our Instagram stories. But anyway, that's all the questions I had prepared. I feel like this went very well, and I'm so grateful you were here. Thanks for coming on, because I don't know. I love your stories. I love your life. I love you. You're my bestie. So I'm just excited that I got to bring you on.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Anything else that you want to talk about, or Marissa, if you had any questions, or are we kind of good? I don't know.
I think I asked my questions where they fell in.
Yeah, your questions are really good, by the way, I have to say. You were being a good active listener.
Thanks.
I'm working on my skills in that department, to be honest.
I do know that I was very quiet in this episode because Arika was obviously asking the questions and Tayla was sharing her stories. So I feel like I was a little quiet, but I piped in when I needed to pipe in.
Oh, yeah, girl. All right. Well, I guess that is it for our interview of Tayla. I'm so glad that we got to do this today. So if you guys liked this episode, please let us know. Let us know what other guests you'd like to see, or if you want Tayla to come back, because I feel like there's like the majority like major chunk of her life that we kind of skipped. Like there's so much more. I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. There's so many more cool jobs I remember that she had that I want to ask about, but I'm like, we don't have time. So let us know and we'll bring her on for a part 2 if you guys want. But be sure to follow us on Instagram if you all want to stay up to date on anything podcast related. Vote in our polls, watch our If You Know You Know stories, and you guys have to listen to these episodes to know what they mean. Okay, that's what If You Know You Know means. You don't get to know unless you know. So make sure you're listening and subscribing. I mean, not subscribing, but following on Instagram at We Run on Coffee. If you need to send us an email, it's werunoncoffeepodcast@gmail.com. And I am rambling, so I'm done. But with that, I'm Arika.
And I'm Marissa.
And I'm Tayla.
And we run on coffee.
Woohoo! Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.